No one anticipated this. Not Rasheeda, not the cast, and not the fans. When rumors became full-fledged revelations in the most recent, jaw-dropping episode of Love and Hip Hop, everything took a dark, unexpected turn. Fans were left stunned by the on-screen drama when one name was revealed: a child. Kirk reportedly concealed a child, and the tension in the room might have broken the glass the instant the truth came to light. The producers made an effort to divert the discussion. Members of the cast moved uneasily in their chairs. However, the harm was already done. Finally, one cast member, who was obviously tired, stated what the others were scared to. "You honestly believed this secret would stay buried forever?" Gasps. Not a word. Then mayhem. Rasheeda's face, however, was the most startling aspect of the reveal. Her whole face became cold. The moment of anguish was captured as the room zoomed in. Social media was ablaze with disbelief from fans watching from home. "Is this an actual thing?" One person wrote. "Tell me this isn't happening, please." But it was. And this was only the start. Because what follows will compel you to reevaluate all of your preconceived notions about Kirk, Rasheeda, and the veracity of their purported romance. The life of Kirk Frost had descended into utter anarchy. What started out as a typical day swiftly devolved into a scandal that would rock his family and the entertainment business as a whole. Everything changed when the truth about his hidden child came to light. The person who was most impacted by the revelation of Kirk's secret child was his wife, Rasheeda, in front of millions of people. Everyone experienced waves of astonishment after this startling revelation, and a series of unanticipated occurrences ensued. Rasheeda, a lady who had devoted her life to Kirk, was shocked and incredulous upon discovering the truth. Her world, which she believed to be safe and based on trust, started to fall apart in front of her very eyes. She was shocked to learn that her spouse, whom she had stood by for years, had been keeping such a significant secret from her. Everyone could see that this was the most terrible blow of her life, as her emotions went wild. Conversely, Kirk felt confined. Now that the revelation was public, the damage could not be reversed. Although he had always thought he could prevent this secret from being revealed, he was forced to face the music now that Rasheeda was looking at him with wounded and bewildered eyes. He tried to clarify, saying, "Rasheeda, it's not what you think. This is not how I ever intended you to learn. I didn't know how to explain it to you since it's complicated." Rasheeda, however, was overcome by the treachery and was unable to control her feelings. "Difficult? Do you call this that? You've been keeping your hidden child from me all this time, right?" Her eyes welled up with tears, and her voice wavered with rage and incredulity. "Kirk, how could you have done this to me? You withheld this from me after everything we've been through." Kirk stood there, powerless, as her words sliced through the atmosphere. He had no answer, no explanation that would improve the situation. In actuality, he could not repair the harm he had inflicted with words. The cast and crew as a whole were shocked by the revelation, not just Kirk and Rasheeda. One of the first people on the broadcast to comment on the incident was Jasmine Blue. Jasmine, who is renowned for having direct and frequently contentious views, didn't mince words. "To be honest, I'm not shocked," she remarked. "I was always aware that something wasn't quite right. The release of this was only a question of time." Everyone was shocked by what Jasmine said. Her matter-of-fact tone gave the impression that she had known all along. It prompted more inquiries. Had she known for a long time this secret? If so, what was the reason behind her silence earlier? Fans, who are constantly on the lookout for the newest drama, flocked to social media in large numbers. Reactions were all over Twitter, with many followers expressing shock and indignation. "Kirk has a lot of explaining to do if this is true." One fan wrote in a tweet, "This is not fair to his family." Another admirer wrote, "This is about real life now, not just the show." Kirk has a lot of responsibility. The news was obviously spreading like wildfire, as seen by the strong social media response. Kirk wondered whether things might have gone differently if he had told Rasheeda sooner, feeling the weight of his secret being revealed. He reflected, "Perhaps I ought to have told her. Perhaps I ought to have said the truth. However, I was afraid of her reaction. I was afraid of losing her. Rasheeda found it difficult to comprehend what had transpired as the days went by. Her entire world had fallen apart, and she was unsure of how to proceed. In an attempt to comprehend how her spouse had concealed such a significant secret from her, she kept playing back the events in her mind. What kept him from telling me? She pondered. Why didn't he have enough faith in me to tell me this? There was no denying Rasheeda's emotional toll. She was simultaneously perplexed, angry, and hurt. The one person she trusted the most betrayed her. She had always thought of herself and Kirk as a team, as partners. Now, though, it all seemed false. She told a close friend, "I don't know how to look at him the same way again. I didn't anticipate this, and I'm not sure how to respond to it." Even though he was overcome with guilt, Kirk realized he had to try to put things right. In an attempt to justify his behavior, he contacted Rasheeda. He pleaded, "Please, Rasheeda, I know I made a mistake. I need you to realize that even though I damaged you, it was never my intention. I was clueless on how to resolve this complex matter." Rasheeda, however, wasn't prepared to listen to him. "No, Kirk," she angrily said. "You're not allowed to offer excuses. After years of you keeping this from me, I now have to face the repercussions. Do you really think I'll overlook this?" It was obvious that things would never be the same between them because of the obvious tension between them. The path to recovery was lengthy and unpredictable, and the couple's relationship had been put to the test in ways never seen before. More information about the story began to surface as the days passed. Jasmine, who had been outspoken about her opinions, kept stirring things up. She even went so far as to imply that Kirk had been concealing more than one secret, claiming to have been aware of the secret kid long before it was made public. Jasmine implied that there was more to this than just the child. "You people have no idea what's actually happening behind the scenes, I assure you." Fans were enraged by her remarks. What additional things did Kirk have to conceal? What else had remained hidden from the world? It appeared that more discoveries were imminent, and the drama involving Kirk and Rasheeda was far from ended. Rasheeda and Kirk, however, were currently at a turning point. Nobody knew what would happen next, and their relationship's future was in jeopardy. Was this the end of their relationship, or would they be able to resolve things and get back together? A flurry of emotions characterized the days after Kirk's hidden child was made public. Everyone engaged in the drama, including the fans and the family, was attempting to come to terms with what had just transpired. The secret now carried too much weight for Kirk and Rasheeda to ignore. Once the cornerstone of Rasheeda's universe, Kirk now appeared before her as an unfamiliar man she could no longer rely on. Their marriage had been ripped apart by the revelation, and now everything was on the line. Kirk was oppressed by his remorse. He searched for the appropriate words to express regret to Rasheeda, but each time he opened his mouth, it seemed as though their gap widened. The damage was already done. The hurt, the fury, the incredulity were all visible in her eyes. Kirk couldn't help but worry whether things would ever be the same, even if she had every right to be upset. Would their marriage hold up in such a situation? Rasheeda, meanwhile, was struggling with her own feelings. She was simultaneously heartbroken, hurt, and outraged. She felt betrayed in the worst manner conceivable because she had given Kirk so much of herself. "Kirk, how could you have done this to me?" Her voice quivered with emotion as she asked. "How couldn't you tell me about something so important? I put all my trust in you." Rasheeda's remarks were like a kick to Kirk's stomach. This was the first time he had ever seen her like this. She was a strong woman who had always supported him through thick and thin. However, she was now broken as a result of the treachery. She was in excruciating pain, and he could see it in her eyes. His voice was hardly audible above a whisper as he added, "Rasheeda, I never meant for this to happen. I never intended to cause you harm. I felt afraid. I was at a loss for words. I believed I could shield you from everything." Rasheeda, however, didn't believe it. Excuses no longer piqued her curiosity. She was done listening. "You believe you could keep me safe? By not telling me the truth? All these years by keeping me in the dark?" She shook her head, growing irate. "No, Kirk. This has nothing to do with safety. This has to do with treachery. Everyone concerned realized the gravity of the problem as the discussion became increasingly heated. The supporters were eagerly anticipating what would happen next as well. Everyone had an opinion after the news went viral. Fans' reactions, comments, and memes were all over social media because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Some were on Kirk's side, supporting his behavior and advocating for him to be given another shot at redemption. Others, on the other hand, were adamantly in Rasheeda's favor and denounced Kirk's dishonesty. "Kirk can't come back from this," a fan wrote in a tweet. "His credibility with Rasheeda and the audience completely evaporated. He's finished." "Rasheeda deserves better than this," said a different admirer. "She has already experienced a great deal. She can't take any more of this." Rasheeda received a resounding amount of support, and it was obvious that the public did not agree with Kirk's version of events. However, it wasn't just Kirk who felt the heat. Jasmine Blue, who had been outspoken about the matter from the beginning, was now the target of even greater criticism. She started dropping further bombshells that left people stunned after implying that she knew more about the hidden child. "You believe that this is the worst part of it." Jasmine made fun of it in an interview. "What's actually happening behind the scenes is unknown to you. Kirk's life encompasses more than just the child. No one is aware of some secrets." Jasmine stoked the rumors with her enigmatic remarks. Now, fans wanted to know what more Kirk had been concealing. Did he possess any additional secrets? Did Rasheeda have more turmoil ahead of her? The whole scenario was becoming more tense, and nobody knew where it would go. Rasheeda, meanwhile, was having trouble staying composed. She was struggling to focus on anything else because of the weight of the betrayal. She tried to cope with the anguish by spending the most of her days alone. She didn't know whether she would ever be able to look at Kirk the same way again, because the love she had previously had for him was now tainted with bitterness. She told her closest pals, "I don't even know who you are anymore. The man I believed to be familiar has vanished. Everything has been broken by all of this." Rasheeda was in pain, but she realized she had to make some choices. She couldn't continue to live in uncertainty since she didn't trust her own husband. She started to doubt everything, including her future, her relationship with Kirk, and the life they had created together. "What sort of existence is this?" she asked out loud. "Will I ever be able to trust him again?" As the days passed, the public backlash persisted. Every action Kirk and Rasheeda took was closely watched by the media, which was unrelenting. People were captivated by the drama, and it became a popular issue. Feeling trapped, Kirk started asking his friends and family for help. He told a close buddy, "I need help. I have no idea how to resolve this. It's all going apart because I made a big mistake." However, the path to salvation would not be simple. Rasheeda wasn't yet ready to forgive Kirk because she was still working through her feelings. She was aware that restoring trust would take time, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to attempt. One day, her voice shaking with emotion, she whispered, "You've done too much damage. I'm not sure if I will ever be able to forgive you." Kirk was forced to face the unpleasant truth that the lady he had spent so many years with and loved was doubting everything. Their relationship's future appeared dubious, and Kirk wasn't sure whether he could turn things around. Rasheeda no longer trusted him, and he now had to deal with the fallout. New information that surfaced as the story progressed fueled the flames. Kirk's secret child was just the beginning. Secrets began to come to light as more individuals looked into his past. What more was Kirk concealing? To what extent would Rasheeda go in order to find the truth? It was far from the end of the emotional roller coaster, and the stakes increased with each new discovery. Was this the end of Kirk and Rasheeda's journey together, or would their marriage endure this scandal? The media, family, and fans were all on edge, anticipating this spectacular drama's next turn. Kirk was caught up in a tornado of public scrutiny when the dust settled. He soon knew that the media wouldn't be letting him off the hook anytime soon, and the hidden child was only the start of his problems. One sensational story after another continued to circulate. The public was no longer his only concern, though. Rasheeda's trust, the cornerstone of their marriage, had been broken, and the emotional harm was still not completely healed. Rasheeda's suffering appeared to worsen in the days after the exposure. She toyed with every moment in her imagination throughout restless nights. How could she have overlooked every indication? How had she allowed herself to be so caught off guard? Despite the fact that she had always been a strong woman, she felt as though she was losing herself because of the overwhelming feelings. It was difficult for her to accept the truth of her circumstances. The guy she loved and the father of her children had been deceiving her for years in order to conceal the existence of another kid. In one of their few but intense chats, she exclaimed, "Kirk, I gave you everything. You did this to me even though I helped you and built with you. I no longer even recognize you." Her voice was clearly angry, but it was also laced with a profound melancholy that cut right through what she was saying. Kirk felt conflicted, now yearning for a second opportunity. He didn't know how to put things right, but he wanted to apologize, explain, and make amends. Rasheeda's words pierced him like a dagger, and her eyes never warmed no matter what he said. Although he was overcome with sorrow for betraying her, he also understood that no amount of apology could repair the harm he had done. He had irrevocably damaged something, and the person he cared about the most was getting farther away every day. Kirk remarked in a regretful voice that was hardly audible, "I didn't want to hurt you, Rasheeda. I believed that by keeping it from you, I could spare you the suffering." Rasheeda's reply was acerbic, with a trace of resentment in her voice. "Keep me safe? By deceiving me? By deciding without consulting me? Kirk, how could that possibly keep me safe? I'm worthy of better." Kirk knew her words were accurate, even though they felt like a slap in the face. In the worst way imaginable, he had let her down. The future appeared dismal, and he was unable to change the past. The emotional distance between them became increasingly apparent as time passed, and the fissures in their relationship widened. In an attempt to find solace and support from those who genuinely supported her, Rasheeda started to emotionally distance herself and spend more time with her friends and family. The lady who had supported Kirk through thick and thin had changed. She was different. As Rasheeda's emotional distress increased, the public outcry also intensified. The situation had been reported to the media, and the reports continued. Although Kirk's secret child was a popular subject, people began to ask for additional information. Who was this kid? What was their age? And why had Kirk spent so much time hiding them? Kirk was plagued by these inquiries and felt a great deal of pressure from the media. No one was more in need of answers than Rasheeda, but everyone wanted them. Unexpectedly, Jasmine Blue chose to voice her opinion once more, further agitating the situation. This time, she asserted that she had knowledge of the child's mother, a lady who had supposedly spent years in a covert relationship with Kirk. During a live interview, Jasmine hinted that there was more to this story than you all realized. Kirk has been leading 2 separate lives. In addition to having this child, he also has a full secret relationship that nobody is aware of. Jasmine made shocking revelations. She asserted that Rasheeda was unaware of Kirk's long-term romance with his child's mother. She also made reference to a time in the past when Kirk had concealed this relationship from everyone, including his closest friends. Fans went crazy trying to determine what was true and what was just more drama that Jasmine was stirring up. The whispers spread like wildfire. Is Jasmine being honest? Fans posed the question on social media. Is it possible that Kirk has been leading a second life all along? The anticipation was killing everyone involved, and the question seemed to go on forever. Rasheeda, meanwhile, couldn't help but feel even more deceived. Kirk had not only kept his child secret from her, but she was now finding out about the potential affair. She was nearly unable to handle the sorrow of this new discovery. Her entire world seemed to be crumbling around her, one fragment at a time. Every time she believed she had the problem under control, a startling new detail emerged. In a private chat with her sister, Rasheeda stated, "I don't even know if I can look at him anymore. This goes beyond a child. All of this is what he has been keeping from me. After years of him lying to me, I'm starting to doubt everything." Her sister, who had witnessed the highs and lows of Rasheeda's marriage, was speechless. Even the strongest woman had her breaking point, and she was aware of Rasheeda's strength. She whispered softly, "Rasheeda, you need to look after yourself now. You can't continue to live this way. For your own mental health, you must consider what is best for you." Rasheeda was at a loss for what to think. She experienced complete heartbreak, confusion, and betrayal. The man she had loved and created a life with, the one she had trusted with her heart, had become someone quite different. She was unable to cope with the betrayals, the falsehoods, and the secrets. However, Kirk was still attempting to save what remained of their relationship, while Rasheeda was having a hard time accepting the reality. He called, texted, and even showed up at her house in an attempt to get in touch with her. However, he was always met with icy silence. Rasheeda wasn't prepared to speak with him yet. She wasn't prepared to confront the man who had completely upended her life. During one of their furious arguments, Kirk remarked, "Rasheeda, I just need you to understand. I made a mistake. I am certain that I did. However, I'm requesting an opportunity to correct it. I want to make this right because I love you." With tears in her eyes, Rasheeda shook her head. "Kirk, you can't make this better. What's broken between us cannot be fixed by you. You and I are not the only ones affected. It all comes down to trust, which you can never regain." The fans had more questions than answers as the situation developed. Could Kirk ever turn his life around? Will Rasheeda be able to get over the betrayal? Or was this their marriage's last chapter? The stakes increased with each new discovery, and the emotional roller coaster was far from done. The public's response remained split, and the media kept up with every development. Rasheeda deserved better than Kirk's falsehoods, according to some followers, while others were still hoping for a reunion. Nobody knew where the plot would go next, and the tension was evident. The quiet between them had become more audible than anything Kirk could say. Kirk waited by himself in his car, parked a few blocks away from Rasheeda's boutique, after innumerable missed calls and unanswered texts, hoping he may see her, even if only briefly. However, she did not appear. Not now, nor tomorrow. She seemed to have vanished into a shell that was fueled by betrayal, rage, and heartache. And to be honest, nobody held her accountable. Rasheeda was still struggling to understand the wave of emotions that was washing over her inside her house. In an attempt to provide assistance, her mother had briefly moved in with her. However, even that was difficult. During dinner one evening, her mother urged, "You must leave him for good. He has revealed his true self to you. Concealing a child? What else might he be concealing, Rasheeda?" Rasheeda looked up, her eyes puffy and exhausted from the previous night's lack of sleep. "I'm not sure, Mom. Perhaps all of it. Perhaps I don't even know this man." Long after they were said, those words continued to reverberate around the room, because the concept that the guy she had created a life with was a stranger wearing a familiar face was the most frightening thing to Rasheeda, not the kid or the betrayal. However, the cosmos continued to surprise her. Another bombshell came just as Rasheeda was starting to think about therapy and probably even separation, seemingly seeking more attention or perhaps retribution. Jasmine Blue shared a slew of mysterious tales on the internet. Her account started to be inundated with screenshots of old pictures, texts, and hazy papers. One image, a purported birth certificate, stood out despite the majority of it being disorganized and ambiguous. The father's listed name, Kirk Frost. However, the mother wasn't named Jasmine. Fans were taken aback. Hold on, was this another kid? Another female? There were a ton of theories on the internet. Who was this mysterious mother? Was there another child that Kirk fathered without Rasheeda's knowledge? The pressure increased. Fans deluged both Kirk's and Rasheeda's social media profiles' common areas. People threw out wild speculations and demanded clarity. Some thought there had always been more to Kirk's dubious past than he disclosed, while others accused Jasmine of falsifying the document. Kirk was spiraling in the meanwhile. Since the initial secret was revealed, he had not talked to Jasmine. Now this? He hurried to contact his legal counsel. He needed to know whether there was another child. But he felt a tremendous sense of fear, since he recalled that evening. It had happened at a music event in Miami more than 10 years prior. He was defenseless, alone, and intoxicated. And he did recall the woman. Tamara was her name. Tamara had worked as a promoter before. Intelligent, aspirational, and attractive. They had only had a brief affair, or so he believed. Had she indeed conceived his child and kept it a secret from him? Was it a crazy game this Jasmine was playing? Kirk reached out to Tamara in a panic. She responded, much to his amazement. Her voice was almost too calm as she said, "I was wondering when you'd call." "Is it accurate?" Kirk asked, eschewing any banter. "Is that kid?" "Mine." Tamara paused. Then she said, "Yes. I once attempted to tell you, years in the past. However, you were wed, and I left when I realized you weren't interested." Kirk felt sick to his stomach. He was at a loss for words. After a long moment of stillness, Tamara finally broke it. "His name is Kevin. He is now 12 years old, and he has inquired about you." As though the earth beneath Kirk had shifted, everything collapsed once more. One more kid, one more secret, adding yet another betrayal to the list. And this time, Kevin, a youngster who was unaware that his father was a well-known figure involved in a controversy, would suffer the same harm as Rasheeda. Kirk was aware that he needed to inform Rasheeda, not only about the child, but also fully, truthfully, and without justifications, about his prior errors. He was no longer able to bear the burden of this. He was being crushed by it. In the meantime, Rasheeda had already started shooting her parts for the upcoming season. Cameras were rolling to record every unfiltered moment as producers learned of the latest revelations. She didn't mince words. Jasmine at first, then Tamara. In a confessional, she said, "How many more females will emerge from the shadows? What is the number of additional children Kirk has? I'm more than just hurt. I feel ashamed, and I'm upset." Her friends came together to support her. When Carly Red arrived at her home, she was crying and drinking wine. "Girl, I'm at a loss for words," Carly remarked. "I have never seen anything like this. Behind your back, Kirk is out here assembling an entire basketball squad." Rasheeda feigned a laugh, but it soon burst into tears. "Carly, all I want is peace. All I want is the truth. Everything. No more surprises." However, the surprises didn't end there. The news was picked up by gossip blogs within days of Kirk contacting Tamara. Images of Kevin and Tamara appeared. In the news, Kirk was now formally referred to as a secret family man and a serial cheater. Rasheeda was unable to avoid it. Behind her back, even her boutique patrons muttered. When she went grocery shopping, everybody stared at her. Her humiliation was now a part of the reality TV system that had once enhanced her brand once the betrayal went public. Rasheeda cried down in a private moment with her sons. She informed them, "I've tried to keep our family together. However, I don't want you two to believe that this is the ideal representation of love." Her oldest son gave a quiet nod. "Mom, you are loved, and we've got your back, regardless." For her, that meant the world. More than Kirk could apologize for. Kirk, however, wasn't prepared to give up in spite of everything. He asked Rasheeda to meet with him alone, without any cameras or producers. Reluctantly, she consented. The uneasy tension permeated the air as they gathered in a peaceful park close to their house. With his eyes downcast, Kirk murmured, "I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here to be honest with you. The whole truth. I have a second child. Kevin is his name. He is 12 years old. I was unaware until this past week. However, it is real." Rasheeda blinked, the words slamming into her. She was still as she stood there. "This is impossible," she muttered. "Kirk, I thought Jasmine was at the bottom of the world. However, this is a completely other level." "I understand," Kirk answered. "I am aware that I have caused you pain that I cannot undo. However, he is my son, and he is entitled to know me." Between them, the moment lingered. A man who is trying to make apologies is on one side. On the other, a lady who has been repeatedly betrayed and shattered. Forgiveness was no longer the only thing involved. It had to do with what Rasheeda was prepared to take, wondering how much longer she could endure before permanently leaving. Both of them were aware that whatever happened next would permanently alter their lives as they sat in quiet as the wind rustled through the trees. Kirk shifted uneasily next to Rasheeda as she sat on that chilly park seat, gazing straight ahead. There wasn't a calm stillness between them. It was loud, suffocating, and dense with words that none of them could articulate anymore. Kirk had admitted everything, or as much as she currently knew, but Rasheeda couldn't find closure for some reason. Not quite yet. Perhaps never. She spoke softly but sharply as she slowly turned to face him. "Do you know that I lost a part of myself each time I forgave you?" Kirk's head lowered. He was unable to respond. Not honestly. He had spent years persuading himself that by concealing his errors, he was shielding her. Now that everything was out in the open, however, he saw that the harm he had caused extended beyond their relationship and touched her soul as well. Kirk continued, "I want you to meet Kevin with caution. I want to stop hiding him the way I used to. He is worthy of a true life, and he is worthy of you getting to know him." Rasheeda chuckled bitterly. "You wanted to start a future with me, but now you want me to meet the child you created?" "He didn't ask for this," Kirk said in response. Not one of them did. And that was the most impactful part, since Kirk wasn't incorrect. The children were not involved in the lying. They were merely the harmless results of his careless actions. However, Rasheeda wasn't prepared to enter that realm just yet. The injuries were too recent. Under the surface, the betrayals continued to bleed. Kirk started posting thoughtfully worded comments online over the course of the following few days, apologizing without naming specific people, admitting his mistakes, and attempting to limit the harm. However, it was too late and too little. Fans were able to see through it. He was dismantled by blogs that portrayed him as the master manipulator. Online memes ridiculed his apology and exposed his practice of dishonesty and concealment. Hip-hop and love producers, meanwhile, had hit gold. Ratings have skyrocketed due to the incident. They desired more heartbreak, more drama, and more footage. Rasheeda, however, wasn't cooperating. Not now. During a production meeting, she stated bluntly, "I'm not a storyline. This is my life. I will not perform my suffering for the sake of views." However, the producers were not letting go that easily. They started interacting with other actors, spreading gossip, and starting arguments. Kevin's mother, Tamara, was unexpectedly asked to go on the show. She initially refused. However, both the money and the prospect of telling her son the truth about his father on video were alluring. She consented, but only if there was no phony drama and only truth. Kirk was incensed when he learned. Kirk yelled at the filmmakers, "This isn't how I wanted him introduced to the world. He is a child, not a celebrity." However, it was already underway. Fans were consuming the footage as the cameras rolled and the teasers were cut. There was no turning back now that Tamara and Kevin were set to take center stage. One of the producers called Rasheeda, who was still in shock. They said, "You ought to be present for the filming, even if you remain silent. It's crucial." After a long, heavy silence, she said, "I'll give it some thought." It seemed unreal when the day of the shoot finally arrived. Standing outside the small cafe where the meeting was to take place, Kirk was obviously anxious. First to arrive, Tamara held Kevin's hand. He was quiet, tall for his age, and had eyes that made Kirk think of pictures from his own early years. Kirk froze as their eyes locked. "Hello," Kevin said plainly. "Hello," Kirk said, his voice breaking. They had never spoken to each other before. Everything was captured on camera, including awkward greetings, tentative smiles, and extended silences. Tamara remained near, open but protective. Nothing could really prepare a child to face a father he had never met, even though she had prepared Kevin for this. As they took a seat, Kirk gradually opened up. "I was unaware," he claimed. "I promise you, Kevin, I would have been there if I had been aware. I would have taken a different approach to things." After giving him a lengthy look, Kevin said, "Why didn't you stay with my mom?" A straightforward, honest, and yet scathing question. Kirk paused. He declared, "I was married, and I committed numerous errors, but you weren't the subject of it. That has to do with my failure to be the guy I ought to have been." Kevin nodded, perceiving the remorse in Kirk's voice but not quite understanding. Rasheeda stood off camera and observed through the window. She wasn't sure why, but she had made the decision to come after all. To see the boy, perhaps. Perhaps to find out whether Kirk truly meant what he said. Perhaps because a tiny, shattered part of her still clung to the hope that things would improve, even if they never returned to their previous state. Tears filled her eyes as she observed Kirk and Kevin together. Not as a result of her forgiveness. Not that she wanted his return, but because she actually witnessed something. Something that is human. And she recalled that if someone was truly trying, they at least merited a moment of grace, regardless of how deeply they had harmed you. Grace, however, did not imply reconciliation. She crossed her arms and stood up when Kirk subsequently came up to her in the parking lot. She remarked, "You did good in there. He is a kind youngster." "Thank you for coming," Kirk said with optimism. "I didn't think you would." She explained, "I didn't come for you. I came to get him. And perhaps for me to witness it firsthand." Kirk gave a nod. "I am aware that I have begged for too many opportunities. I only hope that one day you will see my effort and not only recall my errors." Rasheeda let out a sigh. "Kirk, we'll see. However, we haven't arrived yet. Perhaps we won't be." She left without turning around after saying that. Editors put together the most dramatic plot of love and hip-hop that had ever been shown as the season of the show came to a close. While insiders hinted that Rasheeda would ultimately be leaving for good, fans eagerly awaited the premiere. Her sons were growing, her boutique was doing well, and she was finally making the decision to put herself first. Kirk, however, was making a fresh start, with himself as well as with Kevin. More time with his kids, therapy sessions, and fewer public appearances. It was still unclear if it would be sufficient to restore his reputation. However, he wasn't attempting to fabricate a story this time. As for Kevin, his journey was only getting started. He was simply attempting to be a better man. However, it would always be associated with a father he hardly knew and a world full of cameras, drama, and views. And one thing emerged from it all. The truth always finds a way out, no matter how terrible it is. Additionally, sometimes you are not broken by exposure. It's the ensuing silence that makes everyone confront their true selves. Suddenly, the reality that Kirk worked so hard to conceal is finally visible to everyone. A child who is hidden, a home that is broken. On national television, a woman was deceived. The flurry of emotions, the candid admissions, and the impact that persists even off-camera are still difficult for viewers to comprehend. While some viewers are expressing support, others are urging Kirk to completely remove himself from the spotlight. However, what does this mean for Rasheeda? With everyone watching her every move, can she really find healing? Or will the cycle finally end and she'll be at peace again? And what of Kevin, a helpless youngster who has been thrown into the pandemonium of reality TV? Or is this just another agonizing chapter in the never-ending story? Or is this the start of something better? There is little doubt that this story is far from over. We would want to speak with you. Do you believe Kirk genuinely feels bad about what he did? Is it time for Rasheeda to leave him permanently, or should she give him another chance? Additionally, what are your thoughts on Tamara and Kevin joining the show? Is it a chance for healing, or is it just more drama being used to increase views? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Keep your mouth shut. We read everything. Additionally, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications if you're as astonished as we are. Because believe us, when secrets like these are involved, the next episode is always more outrageous than the one before. Keep an eye on things, be focused, and never forget that nothing is ever truly forgotten in the world of hip-hop and love.